All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a closer look at Earth's ultimate lifeline, water. We're going to explore its fascinating journey, the growing threats it faces, and exactly why conserving this vital resource is an absolute necessity. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover the sources of fresh water, the states of water, the global water cycle, pollution and scarcity, and finally, ways to conserve it. Let's get going. Starting with Section 1, sources of fresh water. Where exactly is it all coming from? Think about the sheer scale for a second. Roughly 2/3 of the Earth's surface is covered in water. With numbers like that, it sounds like an absolutely endless supply, right? Kind of makes you wonder why we're constantly talking about water shortages. Well, here's the catch, and it's a big one. The vast majority of that beautiful blue expanse is salty ocean water. It's great to look at, but totally unusable for drinking, bathing, or watering our crops. That leaves us with just a tiny, tiny fraction of fresh water for literally all of our daily needs. And looking at this, you can see the real challenge. Most of that incredibly rare fresh water, it's not conveniently flowing in a river near you. It's actually locked away, frozen solid, in massive glaciers and ice caps, at the poles and way up in the mountains. You know, it's pretty fascinating how we adapt to having all this unusable salt water around us. Take coastal areas like Gujarat, for example. They actually use their hot, dry climate as a tool, channeling seawater into these vast, shallow salt pans. The sun basically bakes the water away, leaving behind the salt we actually put on our food. Pretty clever, right? But for everyday survival, like drinking and farming, we heavily rely on surface water. We're talking rain-fed rivers, lakes, and ponds. We also lean a lot on groundwater, drawn up by hand pumps. And the amazing thing about groundwater is that as it soaks down through layers and layers of soil and rock, the earth acts like a giant natural filter, cleaning out dust and germs before we even pump it up. Moving on to Section 2, the states of water, a true shape-shifting resource. To really grasp how water navigates the globe and reaches us, we have to look at its incredible ability to literally shapeshift. It's a completely unique substance because it exists naturally in 3 entirely different states: as solid ice, as the flowing liquid water we drink, and as an invisible gas we call water vapor. And it's constantly flipping between these states just through simple heating and cooling. Heat up ice, it melts into water. Cool down water, it freezes into ice. And crucially, when the sun hits liquid water, it evaporates into vapor. These basic temperature changes, they literally drive the entire natural engine of our planet. For a really cool, everyday example of this in action, think about a traditional clay matka. Have you ever used one? It keeps water amazingly fresh and cold, even on a scorching hot day. Because the clay is porous, tiny amounts of water seep out to the surface and evaporate. That evaporation actually pulls heat away from the inside, acting as a natural refrigerator. All right, Section 3, the global water cycle, nature's ultimate recycling system. So those phase changes we just talked about, they fuel the water cycle. This is the continuous, endless journey of water from the Earth's surface all the way up into the sky and then right back down to the land. It is the perpetual motion machine that keeps everything on Earth alive. Let's trace the steps. First up, evaporation. The sun's intense heat turns surface water into invisible vapor. As that vapor rises up into the cooler atmosphere, we get condensation. It turns back into tiny droplets that bunch together to form clouds. When those clouds get way too heavy, precipitation happens, meaning it falls back down as rain, hail, or snow. Finally, in the collection stage, all that water flows right back into our oceans, rivers, and underground reserves, totally ready to start the whole wild ride over again. Now for Section 4, pollution and water scarcity and the human impact. Unfortunately, human interference is severely messing with this perfectly tuned natural system. Looking at the data, the cause and effect is pretty tragic. Factories dumping industrial waste create toxic water that just devastates aquatic life. And when untreated sewage and farm chemicals bleed into our water supply, it leads directly to deadly waterborne diseases like cholera, typhoid, and dysentery. And you know, pollution isn't just massive factories pumping out toxic sludge. It's everyday stuff too. Washing clothes with harsh detergents right in a water body, or bathing animals in a river. That contaminates the source for everybody downstream. It all adds up to a massive drop in water quality. All this excess pollution can trigger something called an algal bloom, which is super deceptive.
Excess nutrients from farms or sewage cause algae to just explode in growth, forming this thick green blanket on top of the water. It looks lush from the outside, but that blanket actually blocks out vital sunlight. And when that algae eventually dies and rots, it sucks all the oxygen out of the water, quite literally suffocating the fish underneath.
And to make matters worse, think about how we build our cities today. We cover everything in impenetrable cement. That physical barrier stops rainwater from naturally soaking into the soil. Because it can't soak in, our crucial groundwater reserves just cannot recharge, which leads to groundwater levels plummeting and creates severe water scarcity in urban areas.
Bringing us to Section 5, Ways to Conserve Water and Protect Our Lifeline.
So, how do we actually fix this? Well, it's entirely in our hands, and it starts at home. We can cut out so much thoughtless waste just by turning off the tap while we brush our teeth, using a bucket instead of taking a really long shower, promptly fixing those annoying leaky pipes, and maybe reusing leftover water for the houseplants.
Scaling up a bit, we can use incredibly smart systems like rainwater harvesting. This method catches rain right off our rooftops and channels it down into underground tanks. Instead of losing all that good water to city drains, it naturally replenishes our depleted groundwater. Governments are actually pushing this hard too, with massive campaigns like India's Jal Shakti Abhiyan and the National Water Mission, getting communities to collect and value rainwater.
And then there's just sheer human ingenuity. In the freezing, super dry region of Ladakh, innovators like Sonam Wangchuk and his team are building these things called ice stupas. They are literally man-made glaciers. They pipe water during the freezing winter to freeze it into these massive, towering cones. Then, when the dry, warm summer hits, those stupas slowly melt, giving local farmers a steady, life-saving supply of fresh water. Absolutely brilliant. So we've traced the incredible, fragile journey of water today, from ancient, frozen glaciers all the way to your kitchen tap. I want to leave you with this final thought. Knowing exactly how delicate this whole global cycle is, what small change will you make today to make sure there's enough safe, clean water for the generations after us? Our lifeline literally depends on it. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.